Hey everybody, hope you have your coffee with you and we're gonna run through this little tutorial. Welcome to the automation channel. I'm your host Dane and we're gonna do some pretty cool stuff. So we're gonna configure our Studio 5000 emulate on a remote computer. I'm set up connected to this computer through remote desktop. We're on a Windows 10 operating system, version 1909. And we're going to also throw in RSLinx Classic Gateway to behave as our remote device server, and as well as our emulate server as well. So pretty cool. So in the background is, I'll slide it out of the way, is another computer. That'll be our client computer. It will be reading our emulate chassis through the remote devices RSLinx Gateway driver, and then it will also host our FactoryTalk View station server. So pretty cool. So by the end of it, we'll have our station server installed on a remote device, which will be here. We'll call this our local machine, and our remote server will serve it the data that we need. Also, the designed software for Logix will be hosted on the local computer as well. So without further ado, let's get started. We'll start building our emulate chassis. So the first thing we're going to need to do on our remote computer, which is our server, remember that, is we're going to click on our first empty slot, which is slot 2, as you can see. Create. And we select our controller. We're doing version 32. Leave all these blank, go next, and finish. Now we're going to add our input-output card that we'll be using to manipulate with Studio later on. And do 1789 SIM, input-output simulator. Click OK. Slot 3, and leave this blank. Now we're going to go over here to our RSLinx Classic Gateway on the server machine still, because this is remoted, don't forget that. And first thing we need to verify, because we're using this as a server, we need to go to our view options and be sure that we accept UDP messages on the Ethernet port, okay? That would be deselected in some RSLinx versions, okay? Be sure to check that. The second thing you need to do is come down here to configure gateway and be sure that this is checked as well, okay? And then hit apply and OK if those are deselected. And then next we have to configure a driver. So we'll configure a driver for this one, and we're going to do the backplane, right? We don't use remote devices. That'll be for our client machine later on. So we do virtual backplane, add, and leave it the generic thing, so we, for ease. And then the slot number needs to correspond to this slot number on our emulate rack. So it's 0 and it needs to remain 0. Alright, we're up and running. Close this dialog box and then populate our driver to make sure everything's there. Kind of pull this down a little bit, rearrange it. And as we can see our two cards that match up to our emulator slots. Alright, now that's configured and everything's done. What we need to do before we start configuring the client is either close this out and be sure it's not running anymore, or launch the RSLinx Classic launcher. And this will work if you have administrative rights. If you don't, you have to either restart your computer, or we'll move this box down here, or you have to go down here and be sure that RSLinx Classic is shut down, okay? But usually just closing it out should do the trick, okay? And we'll be sure that we have all our drivers in our backplane, and it looks good. So we're gonna mosey on over here to our local machine. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of slide this out of the way for you guys all to notice the difference. We'll slide this right there. And now on our local machine, we have to do the same things. We have to make sure we go to View, Options, and that Accept UDP Messages on Ethernet port is also selected. And if not, apply and OK and select it. Next thing, we don't have to configure our gateway, so don't forget that. So the first thing we have to do now is go to Configure Drivers and add remote devices via RSLinx gateway. Add new. And we'll leave it this generic TCP one. Okay, now we need to type in the IP address of our server computer, which is our remote computer in this case. And I did a command prompt ipconfig and got the IP address right here. So we'll type that in right now. Alright, hit browse. Apply. Okay. And we're up and running. Go over here and open or populate. And you're going to see this. Okay. Right click, configure driver. There's our computer name before it blew out again, which matches this computer name, which is hosting our emulate. And just hit OK. And then populate. And there's our rack. So what we did is we established our communications. And the next phase we will download and configure in Studio 5000 our project to this chassis. Thanks, guys.